Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Hunting Beast Report. I'm here with, my name is Scott Biskobing, and I'm here with Dan Infault. I'll let you do a little bit of introductions here.
Hey, everybody. Scott's going to come on and help out a little bit because Josh has been real busy with his kids and his stuff. So Josh is still going to pop in every here and there, but Scott's going to start helping out a lot. And right now we're having some technical difficulties, which is why you didn't get a warning of the show. But we got a great show lined up tonight. There's been a lot of big news happening in hunting. Not all good news, but it's big news. And we'd like to cover some of that stuff. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest topics right now is the 300-inch buck. We were both working at the open season Sportsman's Expo in the Wisconsin Dells a couple weeks ago, and that's where this buck presented itself for the first time, or the hunter, as we'll call him, brought this buck in for the big buck contest. You were the first one to post that there, or one of the first ones. When
I brought that up, I got a lot of hate right away because I said there was a lot of red flags. Now, I never said the guy did something illegal or did something unethical. All I said was there's a lot of red flags, and there is. And if anybody can't see those, they're blind. It's some weird things going on. But I mean, just let me ask you a question, Scott. People listening, if you want to answer in the comments, if you were sitting out on a bean field in December, hunting with a muzzleloader, like Mike Waters was, and a 316-inch gross buck came walking in, at 3 p.m. looking for a donut, and you shoot this thing and it falls over. What do you do? How do you handle that?
Well, I'm taking pictures of it immediately in the field. I'm probably taking video of the track job, the blood trail. And then if I'm shooting something that big, I'm probably calling a game warden right away out to come out and verify, because as we know, deer of this caliber are always going to be put underneath the microscope, very scrutinized. And there's always a lot of questions about it. So I know enough now, and I think most of us do, that at this point, you ought to be trying to get all your ducks in a row.
Well, I would be taking some pictures for sure. And me personally, I'd have it on video. The last really big buck I shot wasn't nowhere near that score. But even so, it caused a lot of turmoil. A lot of people were saying I poached it and stuff like that. But I had video of it, video of where I shot it, where it died, everything. So there's no dispute in any of it. So, any officials that came over wanted to know about it, I took them right there and showed them. So sure. It wasn't a problem. But in a deer this size, there's a lot of things that, we're going through your mind. First of all, if he never saw the buck before, he's going to be as excited as hell. He's going to be sending texts. He's going to be sending, even if he saw it, even if he got the buck he's been after, right? And maybe he knew about it. Mm-hmm. He's going to be excited. He's going to be texting people. He's going to be letting people know. He's going to be asking people for help. And there's going to be a whole list of witnesses. People that got texts, people that got called, people that came out to help, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's possible that he don't do that, but he should have some pictures or something. Who the heck would take that deer, go to it, field dress it, go get a truck, pick it up, never take a picture in the truck or in the field? I'm not saying he should have or shouldn't have. I'm just saying I don't know anybody that deals with a situation like that. So that is kind of one red flag.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of red flags on this one, and I think we all know that. But I mean, just looking at this picture, there's a lot to digest there. Just, you and I had talked. Was this buck ever around any trees to rub?
Yeah,
How
that's a good
sharp those
point.
points aren't.
Yeah, zoom in on that once and look at the bases. Now, this is a December deer. This isn't September. This is December. He shot it during December's muzzleloader season. Can you get to those bases?
Sure, let me see what I can do here.
Look at those long pencil diameter points that are not broken off in December and are sharp.
Right.
Every deer that I've shot that has any kind of burrs on their bases that's that late in the year, they're rounded. They're polished round. And the rack's going to be a color of,
Whatever
anywhere
tree it's
from,
rubbing on.
yeah, anywhere from ivory to dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ivory. That's white.
It's
And
bleached.
there's no bark in there or anything. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, maybe it was a doe with antlers that didn't rub or something, but it's hard to believe there'd be no rubbing. That deer didn't rub trees.
Oh, it doesn't appear that way at all.
And just coincidentally, there's there used to be a lot of deer pens by me. They're all gone now because of CWD, because I'm in a CWD area and they just made it so hard on them. They all shut down, which is fine with me. There was one down the street that was a shooting preserve over on Highway 18. And they kept all their shooter bucks in a pen by the road, not a tree in it. They didn't want them to damage those antlers or anything else. They kept them in that pen
Right.
until it was hunt time, and then they would release them into and those things had white antlers. There wasn't anything rubbed down, snapped off, or anything. There was nothing for them to do in there. There's just a wire cage around them.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of those live. They live like a farm animal. And when that's the case, the tines aren't rubbed off and stuff like that. I'm not saying that this deer, I'm not going to accuse the guy of poaching. I'm just going to say that's a huge red flag that those things are not polished down. And then you go to the whole thing and no pictures, no witnesses, no
Right.
nothing. But he did get a field shot.
Right. We have some pictures here. Let's pull this up here real quick. This is the infamous trail camera picture that everybody's seen, and it looks identical to the mount. Let me just flip back. If
That picture's fake.
and then you go back here, I mean, that is it's
Yeah.
exactly the same. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That picture, I know the guy who made it. I actually posted
Oh
it
yeah.
a
Okay.
joke a little bit, but it was actually made as a joke. And there's a lot of that going around, which makes it a little harder for people to get to the bottom of things.
Oh, 100%.
That is totally fake. And a lot of the pictures out there are fake. Matter of fact, there was one we were laughing at earlier where the guy made the deer dancing.
Right in the comments there. Yeah.
Right. But the picture that has a lot of interest to me is the one that you have to the left there. If you look at that picture, that's his kill picture, right?
Correct.
That picture, the ears are not laying down in any way, shape, or form. They're really locked into a certain position.
They're pinned back.
What's that?
They're pinned back is what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly like they are on the mount.
Right.
In the exact position. Matter of fact, the head's turned in the exact position as in the mount.
Yes, it is.
And the guy was so sloppy he couldn't get a picture in the field. He couldn't get a picture, with it cleaned up or off to the side. But yet there ain't a hair out of place on that deer, and there ain't a drop of blood on it, and the tongue ain't hanging out, which is common.
Exactly.
And did you ever put a deer in one of those ice sleds?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Can you keep the legs in it?
No. In fact, it's what you get hung up on everything as you're dragging them out, because no matter what you do, unless you're going to get a ratchet strap or something, yeah, they're flopping all over the place. They will not stay.
You can't even get them to stay in there temporarily.
Right.
They're not tied down. They're flopping out on a mature deer. And the back of that deer would have to be under that truck. It just seems really suspect to me. And just the fact that maybe he doesn't have a field shot and took a picture of the mount doesn't mean he's guilty of anything. It's just suspicious.
Sure.
It's just another red flag.
Yeah.
But I believe that that's a picture of the mount. I think if you compare them, it'll look a little different, but that's just because he has the head turned a little bit different. If you look at the turn of the head.
I got a comment here from Rich. He said, I wonder if it's a replica and then somebody remounted it.
That could be. There is some other evidence that came out, though. Like,
do share.
yeah, well, Field and Stream, about the middle of when we really got fired up on this and it started spreading like wildfire. Field and Stream released an article, a picture, and a video of that exact buck, that exact rack, 2 years ago in a pen, 2 years before it was shot, in a pen with ear tags in it, with the fence in the background, and it's the exact same rack. And for whatever reason, within less than an hour, everything they put up about that buck was taken down.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit of it, but it was taken down before I finished it. And the gist I got was that deer was owned by somebody, the deer on the left. I'm not saying the deer on the right that's identical, but the deer on the left actually died in that pen, and they ended up selling the antlers.
Okay. So, yeah, well, that...
So somebody bought those antlers.
Right, and then had it mounted on something.
Right.
I mean, we had talked about this previously, too. So this buck was allegedly shot in December with a muzzleloader, right?
Right.
Who's getting taxidermy done that quickly? I mean, unless I guess there's priority or something. He knows somebody or he's a taxidermist himself. That's an unheard of turnaround time. Although I would say it's pretty shoddy work to begin with. I mean,
yeah, I find it pretty interesting that the taxidermist hasn't come forward.
Right. Somebody. I mean, it makes me wonder if he's an amateur taxidermist himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of things we can think about when it comes to this one. Yeah, and it was a score of 312 and an eighth. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it netted 306 and 5/8,
Sure.
which is more than 50 inches higher than the current state record. Now, a couple of people got pretty fired up about it, saying pending record or whatever. But I believe the guys in the books are just doing their job. I mean, they can't say anything different unless they have some evidence that it's not.
Right.
I did, before the show, like a good investigator or detective, like I like to call myself, likes to do, I did some digging. I contacted a bunch of people in the DNR, the head of the DNR, a bunch of people in Boone and Crockett, a bunch of people at Buck and Bear, and I got the exact same statement from every one of them. We can't talk about it right now.
Yeah, it's under investigation.
So,
not to cut you off, Dan, but I mean, if this is entered into a contest like it was here, and I don't know what you get out of that contest if you win, but if there's any monetary value there, aren't we talking about fraud?
Yes. Now the contest, I don't think you win a prize, but if they give you the score, that buck's worth a lot of money.
Right.
And the current world record is now not worth money as much. Mm-hmm. So, what he's doing is he's stealing from the current world record or state record holder,
right,
the current second place record holder, and this current third place record holder. And those people have civil lawsuits they can put against this guy.
It's happened so many times. Yeah.
Even if it's a joke, they could literally sue him for damages,
right,
for what it does to their place. As far as legal stuff with the DNR, if he registered that as a state killed deer or registered a state killed deer to say it was that deer, that's fraud to the DNR, and that's a DNR violation. There's a whole host of things he can get in trouble for. I'm not going to go into too much of it because it would give him a legal defense.
Yeah. It's a mystery, but I think the consensus is, just kind of looking at the comments here. Money, that's brought up here a lot. Fake it till you make it. People with money. Jim Funk said, fact. Also, this is a farm deer. And then the Rumpala buck obviously comes up all the time. We've had our conversations about that as well. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
Another thing too is talking with the DNR. One of the head wardens was talking to me today, and he said that while we're doing this show, we should reach out, and the people watching, if anybody knows something, has some pictures, saw something or heard something at the show or something, reach out. If you got some information, reach out to me and I'll spread it to him. One thing that I had heard from somebody that was at the show that I did not know, and now I can't find it. Whoever that was sent me a message, and I don't know where it is because there's so many messages on this buck. Literally, we were talking about before the show, I have thousands of them. So I was trying to go through them and find it, but I can't. But somebody told me that at the show, they were walking around, they were from Marquette County, and they particularly noticed this buck because it's from their county and it's going to be the new state record. But then they also noticed that this guy, Mike Waters, had also entered other bucks in the contest. I don't know if they're for different years or whatever, but if somebody could back that up, or if they have any pictures or anything, I'd like to hear about that.
Well, if I could go back to this picture here with the pen there. So it's alleged, right, that this buck had died like several years ago in captivity.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Captivity, yes.
And where's that information coming from?
That came from Deer and Deer Hunting, but they pulled the information down right away.
Okay.
I don't know if they were told that they were jeopardizing an investigation. I don't know if they were warned from their attorneys that they probably shouldn't say something that could get them involved in a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. But that's information I believe came from there. I didn't see it firsthand. I heard it secondhand from several people. Because their article went down so fast, I didn't get a chance. But it was stated allegedly that this deer in that picture that is identical to that rack, and I can tell you the odds are less than 1 in a billion of having that exact rack on another deer. That deer died 2 years ago, and the rack was taken off and sold. I don't know for how much, but somebody bought it. It'd be interesting to know who. But like I said, when this first came out, I brought up the red flags, and I said, I don't know. It could be there's just very weird circumstances, and it's legal. Everything was to the books. Mm-hmm. But where was I going with that? I was trying to think ahead of myself, and I lost my thought.
It happens.
Yeah.
So, while you're thinking of that, there's a comment here from Whitetail. It says, I work with the nephew of him. He said his uncle is a real scumbag, and that he has entered several other bucks in the bucks over the past several years that are probably not legit. Kind of, what you were saying too, some of the information that you got as well. So, here's the thing: in the court of public opinion, I think the jury's out here on this. However, let it be known that we're not convicting this guy of anything. That's not for us. There's authorities to figure that stuff out and do their investigations. We're just kind of reporting on a story that's a hot topic right now. And obviously we're really curious to hear what you guys have to say about it as well.
And you got to remember too, I'm a guy who's killed multiple bucks on public land that are very large. So I get accused of things all the time, and I don't like it, and I don't think it's right.
Right.
Innocent until proven guilty, right?
Have you ever had anything this suspicious?
I have never had anything like that. But I film, I take pictures,
right.
You do your thing, but I can understand somebody who's green, never shot a big buck or something, gets poor pictures or something, or in the back of a pickup truck or something, or, But I have a hard time understanding all this stuff not adding up to something's fishy.
Right. I mean, it's clear in this picture that this is the same buck. Let me just go back to that one here. I mean, maybe not the same year exactly, but I mean, if you look at those brows,
No, that's the same
and
year. Those
yeah,
times,
I suppose, yeah, some of those kickers off the back, some of those flyers off of, I mean, whatever, maybe the G3.
it turns a little different. The turn of the
Yeah,
head.
right. And I probably don't even have it all in the picture to the right, but it's definitely
There's
the same
no
buck.
way,
I mean,
even year to year, that buck did not grow a rack that exact year to year.
yeah,
That's the year it died. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I think
So,
so.
and it died 2 years ago. That buck.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the odds are so astronomical of that not being the same deer. They're crazy. But we've seen things like this before. I mean, so when people say that, people are nitpicking, do you remember the Mark Anthony guy?
yeah,
Mark Anthony, he was shooting all these giant bucks, and he had the world's record for the most Boone and Crockett's. And it really caught me off guard. I saw red flags. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to accuse somebody of something they didn't do.
mm-hmm.
But the guy only ground hunted. And I think in order to be a person who shot the world's most Boone and Crockett's with a bow,
yeah,
you can't be locked into just a ground game because he sells ghillie suits. How can you do that with that? To have the world's record for the most Boone and Crockett's. It just didn't seem right. And here it turned out he was buying the racks, just like this guy, off of bidding places. And I'm not saying that this guy did that. I'm saying that's what he's allegedly did.
sure.
But Mark Anthony was proven guilty of buying the racks and then mounted them on heads and saying he shot them.
Here's a question for you, Dan. What's the motivation there? Is it just monetary? Is it money? Do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's ego.
Yeah.
I think it's ego driven. I think they got to have the power. They got to show everybody they're the best. And if they can't go 2 years without killing a deer, I think, think about the pressure that you're on when you don't kill a deer for 2 years, and who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Next to one of these big so-called heroes, right? And they have a lot of pressure on them, and I think that they let their ego and stuff get to them, that they got to prove they're the best, and they end up cheating. They're just the type of people that do that in life with everything. I mean, certain people are wired that way. They just cheat at everything. It's like when you look at criminals. Not to say it's the exact same thing, but it kind of is. If you go into a city, you talk to any cops, they'll tell you that generally everybody's good people, but it's like 5% of the people are repeat criminals that happen over and over and over again. And it's a revolving door. You can't do nothing about them. You lock them up, they're back out, they do it again, and I don't know. I think the only way you fix something like a Mark Anthony is you take away his hunting rights for as long as you possibly can, so that he can't even claim he did something,
Right. Yeah, the hunting world, it's ever changing, and the motivation and the reasons why guys and gals go out and hunt is obviously very different for everybody. And I guess for me, it's always just been about being in the outdoors and more of the journey. And to shoot a buck of that caliber, or I mean even anything over 160 inches, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal that a lot of guys have. For me, honestly, anything 3.5 years or older, that's where my motivation is usually at. But I enjoy that journey. I enjoy the hunt, and I don't know, just for monetary gain and for ego, just it doesn't ring true in my world, I guess, anyways.
What's odd about this guy a little bit to me is if he did what he's accused of doing, generally that's younger guys. Most of the time, when your age gets up there, your ego gets knocked down. Yeah. And then you just don't see guys that age doing that stuff anymore.
No, and that's what's also peculiar about this thing. But it sounds like this might not be his first rodeo either. So,
yeah.
So let me see if we got
questions on that, or
yeah. Let me just take a look here real quick. I apologize here. Our comment section here For some reason, the comments aren't pulling through here, but I am able to see them over on my side here. Let's see. Bucky Doe Downer commented, if a deer farmer sold that rack, he will come forward.
Mm-hmm.
I would think so. I mean,
probably already did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have that information.
Right. So let's see.
Another thing is too that guy. If you look at this guy,
Mm-hmm.
how would you react if you legally shot that deer, and a firestorm like what's going on around now is going on? How would you react to that?
Well, I would absolutely want to be trying to defend myself.
Yeah.
Try to put something out there to prove that it's legit.
Exactly.
And this guy's just not saying a word.
Right.
And maybe
witnesses, no taxidermists come forward, no witnesses, nobody saw him shoot it. I'm not hearing from anybody. And I don't know if we discussed that or not, but whenever I shoot a big buck, and I'm talking 160, 150, I'm not talking 300 inches.
Mm-hmm.
I get trail cam pictures from so many people across the country. Now, not everybody's going to get that because they're not all well known and they don't have a YouTube channel and stuff. But I get that because so many people are seeing my videos and my shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's seeing this buck. Where are all the people that have a trail cam picture of that buck? Where are all the people that saw it? That's in a very heavily hunted area. And people will be like, oh, there's places where deer can be remote. Yeah, you want to go find that place, go do it. It's not where he shot that. He shot that in Marinette County. That's a very heavily hunted area.
Marquette County, I'm sorry. Yeah. I only know it very well because it's a county that I hunt every single year. Very. So
then you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of hunters there. There are trail cameras all over the place. There's people driving up and down the streets. It's a heavy populated area. People would see a buck like that. There'd be talk about it. Think about when I shot the Rome Legend buck. Right. Remember how that story went? Everybody in town knew about it. Everybody was hunting it. Everybody was mad when I shot it.
Yeah.
That's what happens with large bucks. And that wasn't nowhere. That was, a 160 class deer. That wasn't 300 inches.
Yeah.
I mean, how could that deer get through the woods and not be seen, not get a picture? Well, then again, it doesn't rub trees either. So
you'd have to have an expansive amount of land to keep a buck on your property and not have your neighbors and everybody else. And even then, it's nearly impossible. We know that the statistics on some of these deer and the amount of miles that they will travel. There's just absolutely no chance that a buck like this isn't known by others in the area. And we're talking Marquette County too. This isn't the great North Woods of Wisconsin either. It's a lot of farmland mixed in with a lot of oak and pine. There's not these giant properties there that somebody hasn't seen this buck before. We live in a day and age now with social media and technology with trail cameras and that somebody would have something. He would show up on somebody else's camera and we'd see it by now because this is already, a 3-4 day old story, if not longer. Actually, probably about a week old already.
I would say too, and I'm sure it's safe to say this because I'm sure it's already happening, but I'm sure his phone records are being subpoenaed, and I'm sure it's going to prove where he was at the time that he registered and he claims he shot that deer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one way or another, the truth is going to come out for sure, which I think is already coming out with the Field and Stream stuff.
Mm-hmm. I just got a couple other quick comments here before we move on to anything else. And Sean Kane says, with today's technology, some of these photos that folks have of what seems to be the ones that means something or could possibly be a record can be blurry and terrible at best with question marks. Like how do you not have a better picture? I mean, in this picture there, like you had talked about, if I can pull that one back up where he's sitting on it there, you can see there's enough light that you can see the license plate or something there on the back, but not enough light to see a leg sticking out or any of the body behind. I mean, it was a valiant effort, valiant attempt, but
it's kind of convenient that it's indoors too, where you can't see what time of year it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, the deer body doesn't even look right. Did you ever see a deer when it's being held up when it's dead and floppy?
Right.
You know, the ears, everything. And then the hide is pristine. The nose is shiny. The tongue ain't hanging out. There's no blood on the white around the nose.
Yeah.
That's the mount.
I
That doesn't
tend to
prove he's
agree.
guilty, but that's the mount.
Right. Oh, let's see. I just want to get to a couple of Billy Davis. Can the rack be x-rayed to determine how long ago the deer died? Any thoughts on
I don't know
that?
if X-ray would do it. I did see a picture of him holding the rack not mounted.
That's right. There is that picture out there. I should have brought
But
that one up.
I do not know if that proves anything or not. It might. I mean, it might be date stamped or something.
Right.
It's possible. But one way or another, the investigation that goes into this, they're gonna figure this guy out. Guilty or innocent, they're gonna figure him out, and it's gonna come out.
Derek Rauch, I believe that's how I pronounce it. I apologize if I butchered that. But people who do wrong things often fall into patterns. The truth has a way of shining through, and their stories never quite hold up under the light. Does the guy have any other records? Do you know, does he hold any other records for any other seasons with, archery or anything like that? Have you heard any rumors?
I do not know of anything. I tried looking them up. I couldn't find anything. Buck and Bear, Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young are all being really quiet. They don't want to talk.
Yeah.
They won't say nothing. They're almost as if there's an investigation going on.
Which we know there is. Obviously, there's got to be. So, all right. Well, that's quite the story.
If somebody's got a record book that can look up Marquette County, I do know that I did get a message from somebody that said he had several bucks at the show being scored the same day, which I would assume were for different years or different order, or maybe one was with a bow, order from different years. But that piqued my interest. All of a sudden, he's got multiple racks at once getting scored.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a developing story, and one I think we're going to watch closely, as I'm sure all you will too. And hopefully by next week we'll have maybe some more answers, and we can retouch the subject again on next week's show.
Sounds good.
All right, moving on. Another hot topic. How many of you guys recognize this? Of course, all of you do. We got Mr. Brock. Was it Downer? I believe Brock Horner, the charter fisherman in Florida. I'll just pull up this article here that just kind of touches it. Most of you guys have heard this or heard about this story or whatever, and the YouTube video that's out there. But Brock Horner was arrested for this last Friday night on a felony charge. He was released on a $20,000 bond the next day in the U.S. Coast Guard, and IWC are still investigating, so additional charges are still possible. Let's talk a little bit about this here, Dan. Let's talk about this story. When did you first hear about this one?
I came to the story late. I saw the post and I just kind of ignored it because it was fishing. But when I did watch it, I was very interested.
Sure.
It was pretty crazy the way that guy reacted. I would have liked to seen what happened when he went through there in the morning. And you can't play a little clip of that video, can you?
I do not. And I wasn't sure if I should, just based on a lot of the language that was used and things. It was
I'm
pretty.
sure most people saw it anyways.
Yeah.
If you didn't, stop the video and go back and watch the video and then come back. But
Right.
He claims he went through there in the dark, and there was two boats there, and they didn't have their lights on, and he just missed them, and he was mad that they didn't have their lights on and that they swore at him. But he didn't feel it necessary to stop at that point. He came back later.
2 days.
2 days later? Is that what it was?
2 days later, yeah.
Found the kid there alone and just started screaming at him. And it's just a kid. And it just kept escalating. And he was talking about how he's the greatest fisherman in the world and how dare somebody be on like his lake and in his area and stuff.
Right.
And the kid said he wasn't the one swearing at him. He probably was, but that doesn't matter. His actions went too far. I do kind of feel a little sorry for him because he got destroyed.
Yeah.
And it could just be that like he's got things going on in his life and he had a meltdown. But he deserved to get something out of that for sure. He deserved to get arrested and charged with something. But the main thing he did to cross the line was he boarded that kid's boat. And then he came at him and was threatening him. I can tell you right now from my experience, I always carry a gun and I always carry pepper spray. And the pepper spray is so that I don't have to use the gun.
I was going to say, and it's probably less for the critters and more for the,
if that guy boarded my boat that way coming at me, he'd have got a face full of pepper spray for sure. Yeah. I mean, no doubt, because he was coming on there threatening that he was going to hurt that kid coming at him. And the kid even said, "I'm just a kid," and it was almost in tears in fear. And it was horrible to listen to that kid because you could read his fear. It would have been a whole different thing if the kid was yelling back or something, but he wasn't. He was apologetic. He said he was sorry. It wasn't good enough. It's just horrible to watch and listen to. And the guy should probably get a few days in jail or whatever. He's already going to lose his business and stuff out of this.
Oh yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about that. If I can remember correctly here from the video and the article, the individual was young. He was 22 years old. That was we'll call him the victim in this here. And the night before, he's claiming his lights were on, but the boat that was fishing near him, his lights were not. Regardless, he was also coming through way too fast, is also my understanding for that bridge area, coming underneath the bridge.
All the time under the bridges.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And then 2 days later, he comes by and must have recognized the boat or whatever, and that's when he went off. And the kid is saying he was really afraid to even post the video because, like you were saying, how you could tell by his inflection that how scared he really was. He was really embarrassed to an extent to even post it. He felt kind of, like he was like a punk or something for, not standing up to the guy. But this guy was extremely aggressive. I mean, and he already had said that he was a veteran and things like that. And he had veterans on the boat. But one of the other things I thought was interesting is the guys that he had out on that charter didn't want any part of it.
Right.
I mean, that was evident.
Back to him, they sat down. They're like, "Oh my God, would this guy stop?" It almost seemed to me like those people have dealt with that guy's temper before.
Yeah.
The way they reacted, because
if
that was something new, they would have had a reaction to it, like, "Oh, whoa, what are you doing, man?" Instead, they're like, "Oh, here we go again," and they sit down their face. Didn't you get that kind of reaction from that?
I did. They're like, "Oh, here we go again with Brock. He's going off. He's having a temper tantrum."
They totally should have stopped him. They should have been like, "Dude, chill out." I mean, if I was on the boat with you and you did that, which you're just known for that, I know, but but if I was on a boat with somebody and they acted like that, I'd stand up and say, "Hey, stop right there, dude.
Yeah.
Let it go. We're leaving." You can't allow that to happen in your presence. And so to some degree, I hold those people in the boat a little responsible. But I do understand they don't want to get involved and stuff, and it didn't really go to blows. But if it would have been them just sitting there, wouldn't have done anything to stop it because they were too far away by just sitting there. They shouldn't have let that guy board that boat for sure. That's going way too far. That's the minute that became a real crime, is when he stepped onto that boat.
That's where I think
the person's boat.
Yeah, because I think the charges are actually concerning that burglary, because that's one of the felony charges. Because when he got on there, he had hit the throttle somehow. I don't know if he meant to or whatever, but he was taking the boat away because the young guy, I believe his name is Gage, it was like backing away. He was not even in the captain's seat any longer. And at this point, the aggressor, Brock, was coming towards him, and he must have hit the throttle, and then the boat kind of took off a little bit. So, what charges are going to stick or whatever, but it's not looking good for this charter fishing group. And I forget the name here. Let me just look. Not that it's super important, and I'm sure you guys have all heard it now, but it is, maybe this article here doesn't say it. It's a Tarpon Coast Fishing Charters. And, you also have to wonder too, are those guys other guys on the boat actually friends of him, or are they, paying for his services?
I'm sure at least one of them is working for him.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, tarpon are pretty aggressive and tough fish. I mean, those things are crazy. I've never been. Have you ever done any of that kind of fishing? Ever been down that way? No,
not at all.
Maybe someday. I don't know. I'm more of an inland fisher here. I like the freshwater stuff. Let me catch some bluegills on the river or some smallmouth bass, a couple walleyes.
Did you ever run into somebody with a temper like that?
Oh yeah, fishing. Yes, I have. And not so many years ago. In fact, some of the guys, it was a crew of us from the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors crew, and we were up in the Minocqua area on the flow edge. And we were fishing kind of on an inlet there, and there was plenty of space for boats to get by, and it was not a busy day by any means. And this guy came through and was threatening to go over our lines and that. And we're like, we're just kind of like, chill out, buddy. We'll reel him in. Just, we're fishing here. You're kind of coming through, right where we are when there's plenty of safe passage. Well, this guy got so mad, he ended up going really close to us, and then end up bottoming out his boat in a sandbar. And then he was real mad at us. But I'm like, you're doing it because you got real close to us. We kind of even backed the boat up, and the things guys get over worked up about is, and it never surprises me, I guess. But
yeah, I had a guy one time when I was a kid. I was fishing a river, and I walked up the river to a dam. And in Wisconsin, any waterway is navigable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I went right through the water in this river, to my armpits to get to these rocks to fish by this dam where all these fish were congregating. And the guy came on his lawn and yells at me that it's private property. And I'm like, nah, this is navigatable water. It's not private property. I'm standing in water. And he just starts screaming and screaming and screaming. And I just ignore him, hoping he'll go away because the waterfall was so loud he wasn't scaring the fish. But then he went and got his lawnmower and purposely went up and down mowing stuff into the water and hit me with things he was running over with his lawnmower. But I mean, just belligerent over some kid fishing in the river.
Right, of all the things.
Yeah.
I know. And you see so many of those videos out there like that where people are upset about where somebody's fishing. You don't have permission here. You don't have that. Guys that are fishing boat docks, and the Karens coming out and bringing the hose down, and it's incredible. Like, first off, it's incredible that how few people understand the law and what's legal and what's not. I mean, in every single one of these videos, or we're going to call the cops, we're going to call the game warden, and the fishermen are always like, please do, because you're harassing me. I mean, you see that all the time, and I never understand. I get it. Sometimes people don't like, hunting. But what do honest people have against kids fishing or people fishing? That just floors me.
Yeah.
The poor fish.
Well,
and all their feelings. But yeah, bad look for this guy. Bad look for charter fishing. But with that said, we know that there's so many good charter captains out there. We have them here in Wisconsin, all along Lake Michigan. A lot of good guys, a lot of good groups out there, getting guys out there. So don't let a bad apple like this guy ruin it for you. Get out there.
That's the thing. It's kind of like the hunting guy. I mean, people get on your case about calling it out, but guys like that are the guys that give us a black eye, not guys calling him out.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy giving us a black eye if he's actually doing something illegal. And the same with this Brock guy. I mean, he's giving fishermen a bad black eye. Mm-hmm. It's going to make parents think twice about sending their kid out in a boat to go fishing.
Right.
or out to the dock. Even that's not safe nowadays.
No.
I mean, and it kind of gives us all a black eye. So we kind of all got to police that. So
100%.
anytime somebody's doing something wrong, and I'm not saying you should just be a tattletale on anybody doing anything like, sometimes you can handle stuff yourself. Somebody's a litter bug, you be like, hey, dude, really? But violence, if somebody's getting violent, I mean, anybody that's got a set should stand up and do something about it.
Correct.
You don't let some guy threaten some 20-year-old kid. You just don't. You don't sit there. You don't sit down. I mean, to some degree, if those guys work for him, they're risking their job if they stand up to him. But I don't know. I would get fired over that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can see in the back, this one guy's just like looking down at his phone.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking about. He just turned around and sat down. He's like, really? You just tell he wanted no part of that. You can tell everybody in that boat was disgusted with that guy, but they didn't want to say something. So the guy's probably a hothead all the time and probably always screams at people. He's probably got a miserable life and he takes it out on everybody around him.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and it's my understanding that he does have a little bit of a rap sheet for some other things. Without knowing for sure, I don't want to say, but I felt like there was something about aggravated assault in there sometime. I mean, I don't know. This guy's a veteran. Maybe he has some PTSD issues or something.
I mean, I'm not saying it's all his fault. I really ain't at all. But the guy needs help. He needs to get charged. He needs to be forced to get help for his anger issues. Because nobody should get that angry over what happened there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like just for instance, I was going down the road the other day, the highway, and a guy moved over in his truck, and I must have been in like his blind spot, and he just missed me, and I had to go off the road. And we're doing 80 on the expressway,
71.
But 69 and a half.
Yeah.
So, I had to move over. I was passing them, and I had to move over into the across the buzzers and into the gravel a little bit, and come back. And then the guy flips out and he starts just screaming through his window at me, and he was totally in the wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I did? I just went, sorry, man, sorry, my fault. That's what I did to him.
Yeah.
And then he calmed down and drove off.
Yeah.
I mean, screaming back at him. What good does that do? My wife always wants to reach over when something like that happens and crank on my horn, and I'm like, don't do that. And she's like, don't you have a pair? And I'm like, I don't really want to get a gunfight over a stupid argument that I don't care about. Nobody got hurt. Nothing happened. Let it go.
I should probably do what you do, and that my wife is the voice of reason when it comes to me, because I get mad when people drive like idiots and that. And I've been trying to, honestly, over the last couple of years here, make a conscious effort to like just tone it back, and that like there's no need to get stressed out over everything. But I mean, there's idiot drivers all over the place. It drives me crazy. We have this thing in my town with 4-way stops. And I know in a lot of places you'll have 4-way stops where nobody wants to give right away. Ours, we get into what we call the just a showdown. Nobody wants to go, and we're all just sitting there like, somebody go. And it's usually me, because I'm like, I don't have time for this. I know people sometimes are just trying to be courteous or whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're younger, you got more of that ego, and you can't let things go.
Yeah,
And
well, I'm not that young anymore. I'm calming down.
You're like, I'm never going to see this guy again in my life. What do I care?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember, I'm not going to get too much into it, but when I was young, my brother let some biker in my house while he was drunk when I first got my first apartment. And the guy stole our VCR, ripped it out of the wall, and left, because my brother left him in a room alone. And I was so mad about it that over this like $20 VCR, I went and knocked his bike over. I went into a bar, got this big fight with like 10 guys, got my ass kicked, thrown out of the bar, went back into the next day and fought him again. I mean, I could have got myself killed over a stupid VCR. Nowadays, I'd call the cops, say, hey, the dude stole my VCR.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd go, what do you want us to do about it? And I'm like, just telling you.
Yeah.
Because, what are you going to do? It's really, you're stupid for having, if your brother's that stupid and drunk, don't let him have a pair of keys to your house.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of the thing. You just got to kind of look at it from a whole different standpoint. That stuff ain't worth dying for. It ain't worth getting injured or having your family pay for the rest of their life or something, or over some ego match. None of it. And that Brock guy probably really isn't that bad of a guy. I mean, his life's destroyed, but he's probably not. He's probably got some sort of problem. Maybe it's from something that happened in the military or something.
Right.
But he's got to go get that corrected. And the only way he's going to get it corrected is if they arrest him, they charge him, some judge makes him go get help because he obviously needs it.
Yeah.
If that can't correct it, well, then he's gone too far. But they need to take steps in that direction, and the only way to do that is to enforce it on somebody like that.
Hopefully it's a wake-up call for him, that's for sure.
You just think about what would have happened if that kid had a mouth on him, like a lot of them do, and talked back. I mean, you could tell that guy would have just attacked him.
Right. And honestly, what was going to happen on that boat? Are you going to get in a fist fight on a boat, like knock somebody out and they fall in the water? I mean, it's just crazy. It makes no sense. I get being upset with certain things. He was upset because he thought it was dangerous because another boat didn't have its lights on, and he also lumped this guy into it or thought maybe he was the one, even though over and over again he explained, I'm not that boat. That wasn't me. I was here. You came really close to me. I had my lights on, whether he did or he didn't. So he was upset about that. But to be that mad about it, then yet 2 days later, when he wasn't even in the right, he was going too fast through that area. Based on the story that we're given here, we weren't there, and there was no camera footage or video of that. So, that's all speculation. But regardless, to be that mad 2 days later about something that didn't even turn into anything,
It doesn't even matter who was at right or wrong.
Right.
It doesn't matter if he had his lights on or off or anything. And I could understand him going by and going, "Hey, was that you, dude? If it was, turn your lights on next time, dude. You're gonna get hit. We're gonna get in an accident. Nobody's going to be happy." But to escalate it to where he escalated it to, that's not just him being a bully. Like people are calling him a bully. That's something mentally wrong with him that's snapped in his head. He needs help.
Right.
So he's not necessarily a bad person, but he is definitely got something wrong with him, and he needs help.
I just wanted to point out here real quick, Elizabeth Williams has gifted 5 of the Hunting Beast memberships to some of our followers here. So
thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you for that. What else do we got here?
Elizabeth is one of our favorite members. She's on
that's what I understand, and that's what I've been seeing here. So, Zeke Outdoors comments, truckers deal with a lot of crazy, right, Elizabeth? And she says, it, Zeke. So, yeah. What I don't have here, though, is I didn't know if we were going to get to this topic or not tonight. Do you want to touch on it, on what we had talked about?
Sure,
maybe
go
talking
ahead.
about?
Might as well.
So maybe I can pull up some stuff here. I think probably one of the biggest things that you guys are seeing in the news right now, and this is on all news, not just in the hunting world, but I think it's something that hunters are posting a lot about, and that's the dire wolf, and how this wolf that most of us know from Game of Thrones. Although I'm not a big Game of Thrones person, but it seems like that was a big deal on that show. This wolf that has been extinct for upwards of 13,000 years. I know it's 10,000 plus. There's a laboratory that through DNA of a gray wolf, and I'm not a biologist or a scientist of any sort, but somehow or another, created these 2 dire wolves.
I thought they did it with dire wolf DNA.
It had to have been.
I was listening to it on Joe Rogan, and they said they got the DNA out of a fossil of an ear canal. They went inside the ear or whatever. It was fossilized bone and got the DNA out of the inside of it.
And we're certain it wasn't a mosquito trapped in amber. Because I feel like that's how this is supposed to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of weird that they're just like messing with things that don't belong. It's Jurassic Park all over again. And if you don't believe that, while the guy that runs that was talking to Joe Rogan, he said, next we're doing the woolly mammoth and we're doing the dodo bird. That they're working on that right now.
I have also
So,
heard the saber-toothed tiger.
right.
I kid you not. That's what I heard on the news.
What happens when they start bringing back caveman and stuff? What happens when they decide, let's bring back Hitler and study him? They could do stuff like that. And that's crazy. That's crazy. And I started really getting intrigued by this in kind of like a spooky way. Like, I want to know what they're up to. And I started trying to figure out who's funding them and stuff. So I did some research today, and I found out it's ironic that you brought up Game of Thrones, because the producer of that show and the what do they call it, secondary producer, donated millions to Colossal, which is the company that
that's the company,
that does this research, this DNA research or whatever. But their whole goal is to bring back animals from the past. Now, they kind of slipped up in that Joe Rogan podcast. So if you want to get some insight on this, listen to that podcast, because in there, Joe says something to the effect, or they're having their conversation that, you had talked to me about you're going to bring these back to control herds and stuff that human can't control, which would tell me they're trying to control deer with these. And the guy kind of avoided the subject, then came back later and said, all we're trying to do is like put these things in a pen and people can look at them. But that certainly wasn't what they talked about off of camera, because that came up in there that he had mentioned that to him.
Well, that's what they tried to do on Jurassic Park too. Look how that turned out.
Yeah. I mean, if they're bringing back woolly mammoths, I mean, who's to say they don't try to bring back a dinosaur?
Right.
Who's to say, and where do you draw the line? I know they made some laws about cloning people and bringing people back and stuff like that. But I mean, as you've seen in politics, you can get people to legalize all kinds of stuff. They legalize racism as it's anti-racism. They legalize all kinds of crap. I mean, we've all seen stuff that we never dreamed they would change. Like, people rioting are good people that are burning down our cities. And the people fighting them are the bad people, and the police are the bad people. I mean, it is so crazy in our times. I could see a lawmaker getting in and saying, yeah, bring my uncle back. Yeah, I want my grandfather back. Let's bring back cavemen. And, it's crazy. It is.
You got to wonder too, is there a reason why these animals are extinct to begin with?
Right.
When we're talking about evolution and that, I mean, they're talking this dire wolf. I saw this diagram of how big it is compared to timber wolves and gray wolves.
Over 7 feet long.
It's incredible. I don't understand the amount of money, because there has to be a ton of money involved in doing something like this.
They have billions of dollars in donation. It looked to me like it was mostly like rich liberals that were donating into this.
What's the purpose? Just to say you can?
They were making all kinds of claims. All of them seemed a little fruity. If they could do this DNA research, they could do work on making the animals healthier. They could take animals that are near extinction and give them new DNA to make them a better herd, to make them more. That's playing God.
Right.
That's playing God.
Right. I mean, there's so many parallels, and I think the conversation is, what was it, Jeff Goldblum that was in Jurassic Park? I mean, some of the things that he said in there, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right.
I mean, at this point, I'm very interested in the subject. I don't know where I fall in terms of my opinion on it at this point. I mean, would I love to see a woolly mammoth in real life? I think that would be amazing. But like you said, where does it end?
It wasn't too long ago we did a show on here. I think I did it with either Josh or Jeremy, but we did it on a guy that just decided he was going to change the herd. He was a genetics guy for mountain sheep, you know, and he found some sheep that had better genetics. That was like a tame sheep that had these bigger horns and stuff.
Okay.
And his idea was he was releasing this genetics into the wild to change the herd for the better, and he got busted. And he got into huge, huge trouble. But he was literally trying to change the whole herd. And now you got these guys out there trying to do stuff like that. You can get some nut job that's doing this stuff, and you can really, really change some stuff crazy. And that stuff can change their whole herds. I mean, they can decide that some nut job that's a genetic guy that maybe he's a fisherman, maybe he's this Brock guy and he likes tarpons, right? And he decides that he's the best tarpon fisherman in the world, so he wants to catch even bigger tarpon. So he does genetic work to make these things twice the size, and also they start eating people or some crap, you know. I mean, they could do something like make muskies way bigger. They could make deer way bigger. They're already doing that with genetics. They're making world record deer where they grow a world record rack in 2 years, where they're scoring 180 inches as a 1.5-year old buck. I mean, that's just crazy. And that's done with genetics. They could start making monster bears. They could do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think you just leave that crap to God. It's not our business.
Speaking of bears, I think they also talked about a bear too. What do they call it? Back in that same era, like the short-faced bear. It's supposed to be like way bigger than even a Kodiak bear.
Yeah, that's great. Bring some monster back, right?
I mean, saber-toothed cats. Well, I mean, I get the dodo bird, right? I mean, but you know, what are we doing here, and why are we doing it? And then what? So that they can just live in captivity? You know, I certainly wouldn't want them out in the wild.
I have to believe that's not the goal, whether they're saying it or not. I mean, because who wants to bring something back to put it in prison? I mean, I can't see an animal lover doing that. I can't see a hunter doing that. I can't see any human wanting to do that. I can see a small fraction of people saying, well, we'd have a display that people could see. And we'll make it so that they live like they're natural. We'll have this big enclosure. And we'll call it Jurassic Park. I can see some people doing that. But I think anybody with common sense would say, hey, you're locking this animal up in a pen. It's not even, it's not even right. You know, it's just bizarre. Let the dead be dead.
Right. I'm just trying to look through. There's a lot of funny comments here. Tony Francis said they made laws against gain of function research, and we see how that ended up. Although I'm not totally familiar with that. If you want to elaborate, comment further. Let's clone more of those 316-inch bucks, he also said. Elizabeth Williams, cross a megalodon with a barracuda. What could go wrong? Yeah, there's just a lot of... Derek says, it's not really a dire wolf. It's just a gene-edited gray wolf. They're just sensationalizing it. And I think there's some actual truth to that, too, because it's not 100% a dire wolf, right? I mean, just because you're linking that DNA...
I don't know that much about it, but what I saw, they said they took the DNA of a dire wolf out of a fossil.
I did see that, yeah.
And it's dire wolf DNA, and all they did with the gray wolf was make it a host to have the babies. That's what I saw. That doesn't mean that that's the truth, and doesn't mean that doesn't say something in a different article, but that's what I saw.
So what it says here in the article here from Colossal CEO Ben Lamb, our team took DNA from a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull and made healthy dire wolf puppies. Sounds pretty simple. Pretty cut and dry. Just get that DNA and boom, you make them.
Yeah. Send that guy an email and ask him what they taste like. Yeah. Ask him if he had a dire wolf steak.
So I don't know how often you get into this. It kind of
reminds me of just one real quick comparison here.
Yeah.
When wolves came back to Wisconsin, now the DNR says they came from the UP down,
Mm-hmm.
and they were welcomed. We didn't have wolves. We're going to bring them back and stuff. And it's caused all the controversy we have now, right? But they lost control of those wolves. They wanted control. They wanted them here, and it didn't seem like a bad thing. We got, wolves used to be here. They're not that bad of an animal as long as they're controlled and stuff. So they wanted them to come here and get a healthy herd. And in order to do that, they needed funding. They needed protection. They needed this. So what did they do? They made an adopt a wolf program where you could pay them money and they would give you a picture of a wolf and say, this is your wolf, and you can name it. And then they want to have a wolf hunting season. And now we're going to hunt Toby. How did that work out?
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Yeah. And same thing with this stuff. I mean, what happens when they have to be controlled? What happens when they have to stop them after they make them into the sensational, great being, right? And half the people funding it and are paying the money, we're going to be the ones in control. Just like our country, it's controlled by whoever's paying those people, right?
Right.
So whoever's paying for these wolves, which when I look into it, a lot of them are called the Animal Foundation and things like that, and they're a bunch of tree huggers, right?
Yeah.
You think they're ever going to want to control this population they're creating? They'd be okay with people dying over those animals.
Exactly. Those are the groups that are going to be pushing to release them back into the wild again.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand it. I mean, look at the situation we have here in Wisconsin, for example, with the wolf population and how much it's spreading and growing and expanding the range. And how many years has it been now since that wolf hunt? 6, 7 years, and something like that. And we haven't had anything close to that again. We haven't had another hunt. In that hunt, it was supposed to be 5-7 days, and within a day and a half, 2 days, they shut it down because they already exceeded the quota. Mm-hmm. And when they released that hunt, or when it finally became open, there was little to no time to prepare for it. Mm-hmm. Yet we met that quota as hunters in the state in record time. If that doesn't tell you that our population is out of control, I don't know what does.
Yeah, a while back they were saying we had 800 wolves in the state, and at the same time, I was hunting in the very lowest range where the smallest population was, around Black River Falls for bears.
Okay.
And for me and my group, I had about, I think it was 15 baits out, and I probably had 100 different wolves on those 15 baits in a small area of Black River Falls. 100 different wolves on those baits easily. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had packs coming in, way more than the bears. So in this little tiny area, little tiny section of a county, I had 100 different wolves coming in, but there's only 800 wolves in the whole state. And I'm in an area that's got a low population. Yeah. Something wasn't adding up there.
No, you're absolutely right. And the bottom line is it's out of our control to an extent. I mean, until we lobby against these special interest groups, yeah, it's not going to change. It's all, follow the money. Yeah, and I think you just alluded to that just a little while ago. Follow the money. I mean, that's where this goes, because there's absolutely no reason that the population should be where it's at right now. And it's unfortunate because the Northwoods of Wisconsin is no longer what it used to be, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, even in some cases, just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how often do you get out, and I know you're the big marsh and swamp guy. Do you get up into the big Northwoods to do any hunting?
Occasionally I do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has it been a while?
Oh, I get up to Black River Falls quite a bit. I go to the UP a bit. But it's been a while since I hunted northern Wisconsin. It just ain't what it used to be.
No, it's really not. I see a lot of different groups and stuff. I was during gun season. I really love watching different YouTube channels, and where these guys kind of they have their little hunting parties, and they always do these 9-day deer gun hunt videos and things about their deer camps and that. And I enjoy watching and seeing their traditions and things. I'm a big deer camp guy. But it's unfortunate these guys will sit there and hunt from sun up to sundown and that. And if they shoot a spike buck, or a little forkhorn, and that might be the only buck they see in a 4-day period of that they're up there. And they're just tickled about it. I mean, I think that's great, that they're excited about that. However, it's disheartening that, that they're not seeing, and we know that there are big bucks still there, and you do have to hunt hard to get them. Hunting the big North Woods is different, but I mean, predation has severely affected that area. And it's perplexing to me that here in the state of Wisconsin, we released this elk herd, right? How is this elk herd ever going to flourish when we also have, a gigantic wolf population?
Yeah.
So, well, let's see if we got any other questions or comments here. Let's see.
Well, you're looking at that. I'll just say that, that creates a little hatred with the hunters too. Like, I don't think anybody would really mind wolves that much if they were controlled. They're kind of cool animal and stuff. But when they're not controlled, they get out of hand, and that's where the problem is. And it's just like, these people want the wolves, but they can't want them and want them controlled. They have to want them, and there's no control, and they just control themselves, and live in their little fluffy wolf houses and die of old age.
Yeah.
There's got to be some in between. There's got to be some give and take. I don't mind wolves, but there can't be this many of them, in my opinion. There has to be some control, but it's become a political issue, not a control issue.
Correct. I think the majority of hunters out there are not for eradicating the wolf from the state. I don't think that's the goal. I'm sure there's some that would prefer there to be absolutely zero wolves in the state of Wisconsin. I'm not one of them. I'm fine with having a population, and like you said, a controlled population.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that probably like to bring the dire wolves and have them here too.
Oh, I'm sure, and I think we could put them in one particular county.
You'd probably breed with the timber wolves and make some super wolf.
Right. What dire yotes. We got a donation here from Andrew Vondolowski. Hopefully I said that right. His comment says, there are wolves all over Fort McCoy and Necedah. Mm-hmm. You've done some of the hunting in Fort McCoy, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Has it been a minute?
It's been a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's
Necedah too, but Necedah mostly when I was younger.
Same.
But, I used to hunt a bit there when I was younger.
That's where I cut my teeth, was hunting in Necedah. 12 years old. I hunted public land there for quite a few years, and then moved up to the Black River Falls area, Hatfield.
I got a good Necedah story for you.
Yeah, let's hear it. I love Necedah.
I went back up there. God, it had to be about my early 20s or something. Right when turkeys first got to population, you could hunt them in Wisconsin. You remember, we didn't have turkeys when I was a kid. There were no turkeys in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They started bringing them back. And then about the time, I was like 18, 19 or something, the population was starting to come back. And they finally had a hunting season. And I drew one of these rare tags for the Necedah area. And I'd never even seen a turkey in my life. So I went up there to turkey hunt. And that time you could hunt, I think you could only hunt till like noon or something. And you had the whole afternoon. And I would look for turkeys. I never saw a turkey. I never heard a turkey. It was getting pretty boring. So a couple times in the afternoon, I'd go fishing. And I went by this, there's this waterfall coming out of like a dike or whatever. And there's this pond underneath it and a creek that came out of there. And I thought, I wonder if there's any fish in there. So I pulled over and I went over to fish. And I brought my rod and my tackle box. And I take a cast. And the first cast with a lure, I get a northern. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I let it go. Take another cast, I get another northern. Take another cast, I get another northern. And every cast, and the northern got off, another one would hit it before I got, I was like, wow, is this place great? Nobody was fishing. There's no sign of fishermen or nothing. I'm like, Nobody's figured this out. Because it was a little creek. I'm figuring nobody probably even took, they overlooked it. So I started trying to find the worst lures I had in my tackle box, like the cheapest, crappiest things, to see if they wouldn't bite them. And I'm catching all these northerns and stuff, and people are honking and waving at me as they're going on this gravel road and stuff. And I finally, my arms are so sore, I come out of there and I go to leave. And I get up to the road, I get to my truck, and I'm putting the stuff in there, and I turn around and look back at the pond. And there's this giant sign, I don't know how I missed it, that said no fishing. This is like a fish refuge.
That's the thing is when you see something like that, right? It's easy to miss the signs because you're so focused. I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder if there's fish in there.
Oh no, I missed it. It was like red and white. I'd have no excuse. Like if a warden would have pulled up it, I totally missed it.
How were they waving at you, by the way? Were they like
they were beeping and waving, and I thought they were like shouting me on, and they were probably like, idiot,
Yeah, you're not. You idiot. Well, did you have a good time though?
I did, but I was, it was a little bit of a shocker there.
Nowadays, somebody would have been calling the warden already, with cell phones and whatnot.
They didn't have cell phones back in those days. So
right, exactly.
They had to go find a warden.
So, let's see. My cohabitat says, I live in a deer yard on the edge of town. My camp's a few miles away. We used to see 50 to 100 deer minimum every set. Now I see the same 8-ish. The migration is dramatically less than it was. The migration. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to keep up with some of these comments here. Sometimes people are commenting on other. Dervish Churi says, doesn't predation ensure better genetics for the prey?
To some degree. I mean, I think with wolves, they seem to eat the sick, which is good. But they also eat the young, and they eat the prime bucks usually. Because the ones that are in their peak of life are the breeders, like the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And they get so run down during the rut, not before the older ones are, a little better, but the real old and the peak ones, they get a lot of the bucks when they're in their prime because those bucks get run down really hard in the rut. And then if there's any kind of snow or anything, they just get too weak to fend them off. You know what I mean? To outrun them and stuff. At least that's the way I understand it. So they do get a lot of prime bucks, whether you want to believe that or not. Yeah, but the fact that they get the sick ones is good. They get the wounded ones. Somebody blows a leg off of a deer and the deer don't suffer for 2 years. It gets eaten. So that's good.
One other, Eric Anderson, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is to blame for the wolf situation. They introduced them in federal forest lands, and now they are out of control. I won't hunt the UP and stay in northern lower Michigan. What have you seen in terms, witness up in the UP as far as the deer population goes? Is it very similar to northern Wisconsin? My father-in-law has property in Florence, Wisconsin, just north of Iron Mountain, Michigan, more I guess to the northeastern side of the state of Wisconsin, but less than 10 miles away from Michigan. What's your experience there with that and talking to people up there in terms of the wolf population up there?
So I probably have a little bit of a tainted view because of when I hunt. Mm-hmm. My hunts in the UP in recent years have been basically around the migration. So very late in the year, when there's deep snow and the deer are migrating. And at that time of the year, we see a lot of does. Just a ton of does, not very many bucks. Probably 50 to 1 does to bucks. And the bucks are usually a spike or a fork or something, but occasionally you see a good one. But a lot of deer. The one year we had doe tags, and me and Eric both decided to shoot a mature doe. Both of us shot one older than that wasn't breeding anymore. Both of those deer were really big and old does. And man, did we catch hell for that. There's people up there like, you do not shoot does up here. Okay. I don't even think they're breeders anymore. They're very old.
Sure.
But we saw a lot of deer, and a lot of deer sign, but we were hunting where they were congregated. And what we were told was that during regular times of the year, like rut and stuff, those deer are spread out so far that they're harder to find. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody from the UP could expand on that a little.
Yeah. If there's anybody on here, Jimbo Slice says they just also documented the first cougar cubs in the UP this year.
Yeah. Yep, that shows breeding. They've always claimed that all the cougars that are being seen, which are quite a few in Wisconsin and kind of in the UP too, they claim males, young males moving in from out west. The cubs mean there's females in their breeding, which is a big deal. That means you're starting to establish a population.
Right.
Now, I kind of wonder about that to begin with the cougar thing, because there's over 100 and like 120 sightings a year. It might even be more than that now since I've looked last. I've looked a couple times when they get down by me, and you hear them, then you get excited, you talk about them and stuff, you start looking things up. We haven't had one by my house in a long time, a few years, like 2 or 3 years. But they come through. I got a lot of friends got them on trail cameras. There's a lot of sightings. I think a lot of them don't get reported. I know one guy from Black River Falls showed me a bunch of pictures of a big, what looked bigger than one of those young males they're talking about. It looked like a big tom on his trail camera, quite a bit. He had a lot of pictures of it. And
so it wasn't just roaming through.
Right. And I asked him, are you going to report that? And he said, absolutely not. I said, why not? He goes, I got a deer feeder. Okay.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that. I think a lot of people don't want to report it too. And it's like down here when I get a bear in my yard, and we've had it. Bears aren't supposed to really be down here. But I've had bears in the yard. My kid took a picture of one walking across the street in front of our house. Mm-hmm. And a guy up the street has a bear bait set up. He's got a stand over the top of it. I seen it. I took some pictures of it. But I don't report it. You know why? Because they'll come around and they'll dart it and take it up north because everybody down here is afraid of them. And it's like you go up north and bears walk down the street, nobody cares. But down here, it's going to kill somebody. It's going to eat somebody's dog. They don't kill people and eat their dogs in Ashland.
No.
I'd like to see a bear population down here. I think our swamps are big enough,
Sure.
But
yeah, I mean, I think, obviously bears will take fawns and things like that. Or, I think to the same level, like you said, with the wolves, probably with the sick, right?
Mm-hmm. Mountain lions are a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
They bring in mountain lions, and I could see there'd be problems. We're a very populated state. And if they get a foothold, we're a very liberal state. And you're going to get a lot of people that want to protect them, and they're not going to care if people get killed. They're not going to care if kids get killed. They're going to protect those cats over people. They're going to give them some godlike image, kind of like they've done with wolves.
Exactly. Dan would love to have you come scout Colburn Wildlife Area, 5,000 acres of public. I hunt with lots of swamp in central part of the state. That's from John Bowers. Have you ever been at the Colburn Wildlife Area?
What's it called?
Colburn, Colburn, Colburn Wildlife Area.
Never heard of it. So
I can't say I'm familiar with it either. A couple people here chiming in live in Iron Mountain. Also, we had somebody here who also hunts in the Florence area. So my father-in-law, like I mentioned, I can't tell you, every time I see him, he's showing me trail camera pictures of the wolves he has on the few cell cams he has on his property. And a lot of times they're carrying a hindquarter or a leg or something like that in their mouth as they're walking by too,
Yeah.
He sees, but he does see deer all the time. He's just not really seeing bucks, and he won't shoot a spike or anything like that. But my wife and I have been together now for almost 20 years, and in that time, he hunts every single year during gun season by himself up there, and I've yet to see him kill a deer yet. That's just that,
And then the thing is, like the whole reason I do what I do, with my videos on how to hunt and how to scout and stuff, it's really because if people are successful, they'll stay in hunting. So I want to help people. It's about making people better hunters and hunters better people. Because when you bring people into hunting, young people and stuff, if they don't find success, they tend to drift off.
Right.
So you want them to at least find the path. You know what I mean? Where it didn't
Mhm.
used to be that way. It used to be that secrets were all kept inside. You don't tell anybody and stuff. And I kind of broke that mold. And I got a lot of hell for it for years, but now you see everybody doing it. And I think that's great. Because when you look at what we're talking about here and up north, if they don't get a grasp on the deer herd up there, they're losing a lot of kids. They're losing a lot of people. Kids are going to it ain't like when we were kids and there was nothing else to do. They've got things to do. They can go play on their computer, their phone, or whatever. And literally, they don't have teachers saying, "Oh, great job, you got an 8-pointer." They have teachers going, "Oh, you should never eat something with a face." So, so in order to keep kids interested and to make them love hunting and keep the sport alive and keep it where hunters control herds instead of dire wolves and things like that, we need to control these herds and get back a grasp on controlling the state and other states. The hunters got to take more involvement. I mean, they don't. You try to get people to get involved in anything. Like right now around me, and we should do a show on this, they're selling all the public land.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's crazy. And everybody's just sitting there complaining about it, but nobody wants to form a group. Nobody wants to be the ones that say, hey, we got to form a group that polices this, that brings it up. Because as hunters, if we got a group together, even if it was one group, you got all these hunters, all these young hunters that want to come in and want to be somebody important. They want to have a podcast. They want to have a show. They want to be these killer guys that kill all these giant bucks and stuff. If they did and they're competing with every other kid their same age, because there's platforms now that everybody can do it. And if one of them would form a group where they did something like once public, always public, and they protected the land, and they did things to raise money to do that, and then they contacted these legislators and stuff, and tried to change the laws to protect this land and protect what we're doing and go after the things that are just not right, that the hunters see as not right. Because right now, like our DNR, like in my county, my DNR is putting in trails, they're putting in ponds. They're not asking, they're hiding it. They sneak out there and do it. Because they know if they say something, everybody will say no, but they want to do it. They got money to spend. They got a grant. I don't want them doing it. I don't want them wrecking our land. I want it to be natural. I want it to look natural. I don't want roads going back there so hikers can go back to. We need to have remote areas. We need to have places where you have to hike through water and crap to get back there. We don't need to have trails going everywhere. And the only way we get a grasp on that is if somebody steps up and takes control. And I'm just getting too old and I'm too far gone in the stuff that I'm doing. I would love to see one of these young groups, young guys step up and do that. I'd even help them. I'd help support them.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? I mean, it's going to take the generation before ours or after us, the millennials and the Gen Zs that are into the outdoors to go with something like that and run with it, because it's really up to them now. What we've done as Gen Xers is we've laid the groundwork for a lot of things. But we're also at fault though too, because we should, like you said, we should have some of these things in place. We should have these groups already organized. If these special interest groups are this powerful, now I guess obviously money is the biggest factor in a lot of these things, but we're such a large population of hunters here just in the state of Wisconsin. And then you talk about Michigan and Illinois and Minnesota and throughout the upper Midwest here. There's 100%. We have the people. It's just organizing. But instead, what we do is we spend a lot of time on social media just complaining and arguing amongst ourselves about things.
Ever go to a DNR meeting about when they have the spring meetings about rule changes, proposals, changes, what they're going to do? you ever go to one of those?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, usually 5 or 10 people show up from your whole county.
Exactly. Unless there's something that gets out there on Facebook or on social media in some way, like pushing. And even then it's pretty sparse.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that's what it's going to take. And I think there's just a lot of complacency in our industry and, or in our community of hunters that somebody else is going to take care of this. There'll be another group. And, what was the group out of, I believe, Missouri or whatever, that was a big part of Hunter Nation, was it? They were a big pusher for us to get that wolf hunt in the first place. Didn't they sue the federal government to open that hunt up? But anyways, it's going to take more groups like that. We need to come together as a community and fight for what we want and what we want to keep around for future generations, for sure. So,
and one of those young kids, if he didn't go the ego route of trying to make himself a big hunter, where he never will, he'll never succeed because the market's too flooded.
Mm-hmm.
If he went that route and he's the only one doing that, or the one to start it,
right,
started a state function, like, standing up for hunters, I think he would take off like crazy. Especially he had a YouTube show, and he could still do his hunting, still put it on there.
Yeah.
Still put it on the channel, still do that stuff. But we need some sort of oversight committee to stop them from damaging our public lands. What you got to realize is we own the DNR. They work for us. Mm-hmm. They're our employees. We're their boss. I mean, when I called my local biologist for Jefferson County, and I told him I wanted to know why a property got sold, and he couldn't give me a reason. He said, well, we had to get rid of one. I'm like, you didn't have to get rid of that one. It's very popular. Get one of these landlocked ones that your buddies own the property next to. Why is that not getting sold and this one is?
Yeah.
And he couldn't give me an answer, and he didn't like the fact that I was asking. And why is a trail getting put in here? You didn't ask. You didn't have a meeting about this or anything. And that's our communities. We own this property. You know what his response was? Hang up on me and never answer my phone calls again. Never answer my messages.
Jeez.
He works for me. I should be able to fire him. And if we were organized as a group, we could do that. Mm-hmm. We could remove somebody like that if he's doing that, because they do literally work for us. And I contacted our legislators. I went right through the list. I tried to be active, but can't do it alone. I contacted all my legislators, and I told them they're selling my land and I don't like it. And they said, well, you're the only guy we heard from, and we get tax money if we sell that. And what are we supposed to do here? They're telling us hardly anybody uses that property.
How would they know?
Right, they don't. They're just saying that.
Because there's not 20 trucks out there every single day. I mean, yeah, I'm sure
when he told me that, I contacted a whole bunch of local people around here that I knew that were hunting the property that he was selling. And I gave him a list of names, and then he wouldn't respond because I proved he was wrong. Yeah. But that has to go to legislators. And when you form a group like that and you get power with a group, you can get media contacts. You can get on the news. You can do things where you bring attention. They don't like attention. Then they have to start doing their job. I'm not saying they're not doing their job, but I'm saying we have some say in what goes on. We're a powerful voice. We're the ones buying the licenses and stuff, and we're starting to go away from it. We're starting to lose young people because of the wolf problems, because of the selling the properties, because of all that. And if we could get a hold on that as a group, we could start having a little more control of what's going on.
Yeah, I think I would imagine in a general sense that most hunters don't even know where to begin with that. Like, if it's going to take somebody who has the wherewithal with some of these things to start that group and just get people on board with it, whether it be signing petitions or coming to these meetings and things. I think that's kind of where it needs to start, because your average Joe hunter who's working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and enjoys hunting on the weekends and that doesn't want to see it go away, but also doesn't know where to start or where to find the time either.
Right. But
that's the thing.
You could figure it out pretty quick. So
sure.
you take a look around at all these guys starting these podcasts
mm-hmm.
and these shows and the little YouTube channels and stuff, and you look at how fast they grow. I've gone back and looked at some people that I've seen get into this 5-6 years ago, and they got 400 or 500 people following them on YouTube. That's it. You know, they got hardly anybody following their podcast. They do a podcast and 7 people are tuned in. But if they were trying to do something for the state and they're unique, that's the whole thing, is being unique, right? Have some unique thing, like you're going to help protect hunting rights, right? All of a sudden, every podcast out there is going to want you on it. They're going to want to talk to you about it. They're going to, hey, what are you talking about? What's going on here? What are they doing? I mean, you'd have a voice because you're the only one doing it. You know, but if you're trying to be Joe Hunter and you're trying to be a podcast like everybody else's podcast, you're going to go nowhere. You know, and then, you know.
But why do I feel like I resemble so much of this? By the way, folks, come check us out over at Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube.
You do bring up a good point, but there's a lot of people like you.
Right.
That are younger groups or just starting out. And they're like, okay, I can be like him or whatever. Or they look at like the Hunting Public or me or we're the veterans that started this. It was easy back then. Now you're going up against every single person's doing it. It's really hard to get a foothold, as you know. It is. It's very hard to get a foothold. You can be a really great podcast guy. You can be a really great, have a really great show. You're going to have a hard time getting a foothold.
Oh, yeah. The competition.
It's in some way. It doesn't have to be that you do what I was saying, but unless you're unique in some way, you got something to bring to the table that other people aren't bringing. Right.
Kids, listen up. It's not an easy road either. There's a lot of work behind the scenes.
How long have you been doing this? You've been
6 years.
6 years, and you're still pretty small.
Yep. Yeah, we are. We got like 2,200 followers on Facebook. We went more of the Facebook route for too long. We just more recently got into YouTube, but we stream too much on Facebook and that's not really the place to go. So we're in the process of transitioning more over to the YouTube side and that, so we can reach.
YouTube pays better too.
Yeah, that's true. So
what I noticed about you, and we could just change the subject now, but way back, I don't know when it was, but you approached me and I didn't know who the hell you were. You came to me and you said, hey, want to get on my podcast? And
is that how I sounded too?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. But you asked me to be on your podcast, and I get that asked a lot. Not as much now, but there was a period of time when, man, I was just getting hammered with podcasts. And probably not as much now because I got my own. And then people don't want you as much. But when you asked me, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look you up. And if you don't have a big number of people, what do I want to be on there for? I'm wasting an hour. Right? And I don't mean that in any mean way or anything, but it's just the truth. It's just a fact. So, but the fact was, you just sounded like a fun guy and you were talking me into it. And I'm like, yeah, what the hell? I got an hour to burn, right? So I did it. And I noticed that
you were there for 4 hours.
Right. Matter of fact, you even talked me into going to your studio.
Right.
Which was impressive. You guys have been doing this. You built this great studio.
Yeah.
And you and your partners were really good at what you're doing. And I thought, wow. I mean, you put this much effort into it, and where are you getting? And it's really not your fault. It's the market is flooded.
Right.
There's just so many people doing this. But you're doing it out of passion. And you're doing it because you love it.
Right.
And I felt like I needed a little more help on this channel. I'm not as technically savvy as like you are, right? But I got a good message to put out there. So I thought involving you in this mix would be good for me. And I thought it would also at the same time be really great for you because it would bring attention to your channel and stuff and give you some of the credit you deserve.
Sure.
For what you.
Yeah. And that's, with all things we talked about it. Yeah. And it's an opportunity that I definitely appreciate in that. I mean, been watching Josh and Jeremy do it for a while and they were really, really good at it too. And I'm just hoping to bring something maybe a little bit different, not necessarily better, but just different and kind of, mixing things up here a little bit. We're still working out through a few technical things here because it wasn't, for whatever reason, the chat didn't come up here today, which is really disappointing, but we'll get that worked out before next week's show.
Yeah, we got to get the whole thing where it announces it before the show is coming on and stuff. We just got to work it out with your setup. But
right. I'm using different software than those guys did. So,
anywho, anybody that wants to check it out, you've also got your own show.
Mm-hmm.
You want to explain that?
Sure. Yeah, it's called Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors, and you can catch it. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all under that same name. We stream our shows every other Thursday, so I'll be working that in to the mix here of doing this on every Tuesday here with Dan. So you'll be seeing my face a little bit more. Hope that's okay with everybody. Hopefully I'm doing a good job here tonight, and you guys will warm up to me like you guys did with Josh and Jeremy. Those guys are fantastic. I got big shoes to fill there, but I'm just here to with Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors. It was always just a passion project. We just wanted to talk about hunting and the outdoors. I mean, who doesn't enjoy doing that? I've never been a guy that wants to give you tips and tricks or come across as an expert. So on this show, you're not going to hear that from me at all. Nor would you see it on that one. Dan's the guy. Dan's the guy who knows what he's talking about. So I'm just here to come along for the ride and hopefully add something to the show, I guess.
Well, I appreciate the help, honestly. Yeah. So
it's fun. This has been a fun show, and I'm looking forward to a lot more and getting to know some more of the regular followers here. It's been really hard to keep up with the live chat here. There's been so many people chiming in. I wish I could get to more. And once we get that going, we'll get some more of those popped up on the screen there for me to see and for Dan to see and for you guys to share with each other. So you got a good group of followers for sure, Dan, and loyal followers. It's pretty fantastic.
But you'll find that some of them will hate you and some of them will love you and some of them will.
That's okay.
It's just the way it is. It was for sure. It was for Josh.
I got thick skin, so let me have it. Not too much though.
not Brock level, but give it
right. Yeah. I mean, let's tone it down. But
don't board the boat, guys.
Yeah. Well, I thought this was a really good episode, though. I thought the topics we discussed here tonight are very relevant and apropos to what's going on, and I look forward to staying up with all that kind of stuff in future episodes. What do you think we have on docket for next week? Anything we want to give away, or we'll just
I'm not sure
yet.
We'll
wait and see.
Yeah, let's wait and see.
All right. We'll keep you guys guessing, but stick with us, and thanks for welcoming in. Some of you guys are commenting, and I appreciate that. So I think it's a good place to wrap up. What do you think, Dan?
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunting Beast Report. Until next time, stay safe, stay outdoors.